You know, one day I might be motivated enough to actually get my camera tripod out rather than just putting my camera on top of my stack of Mortal Instruments books. But today's not that day. Hello! Today I'm going to do a book review. I just had to do one because Turtles All the Way Down, John Green's new book, came out recently. I bought it. I got a signed copy, which is really exciting. And then I read it in about a day and I loved it. Just as a warning, this video will have spoilers. I just want to get into like the details of it. So if you have not read it or you don't want spoilers, stop watching now. Okay, first off, if you're watching this, you've probably already read it, so you know the plot, but quick plot summary. It's about this girl named Aza who has OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. She is a junior in high school, and it's just about her story, sort of a coming of age story a little bit, about how she deals with her OCD and her relationships in her life. So the first thing I want to talk about is the thought spirals, which is how John Green describes these thought processes that Aza has, that has to do with her OCD and sort of how the process of her mind works sometimes. I really liked the description and like the metaphor of that, a thought spiral. I don't think I've ever really had a thought spiral, especially how she describes them, but just the way that is described in the book and the way that John Green wrote it was so interesting, and like really, it just really helped you understand the character, and I really liked that. And I think it made a pretty cool cover, the little spiral in the background. Along with her OCD, which was pretty much the main plot line of the story, there was the reoccurrence of her having to take off the band-aid, make the cut on her finger bleed out, put hand sanitizer on, wash her hands, and then re-put a new band-aid on. And then later that escalated to her drinking the hand sanitizer. That whole thing was just so, like, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just so, it was hard to read, especially in the hospital when she tried to drink she did drink the hand sanitizer out of like the dispenser on the wall in the hospital room after the car accident. That was just so like shocking. But it was also really well written, the way, with the thought spirals, how the regular printed word would be her more like rational thought, and then, if that's the right word, and then in italics it would be like her OCD thoughts talking to each other, and it was almost like they were talking back and forth to each other. And in the hospital, when she was thinking, I don't have to do this, I'm in a hospital, I don't need to do that, and then her OCD was like, no, just in case, you should probably drink the hand sanitizer. It was just such an interesting way to portray that via the written word, and I really liked how it was done. The whole hand sanitizer thing, I just cannot fathom it, because to me that doesn't make any sense, and to most people that wouldn't make any sense. Even to her, with her OCD, she knows that, yeah, I probably shouldn't drink hand sanitizer, but sometimes the thoughts that are hers but not hers sort of control her. Like she says, she thinks a lot about what thoughts are really hers and what her thoughts make her and all that, and it was all very philosophical and very interesting, and something I have never really thought about before. And I think that's why I liked it so much, because her thoughts are so different from anything that I've ever seen or heard or thought about myself before. Now, with most books, I get pretty attached. If it's a romance book, I get pretty attached to the romance within the book, and this was no exception. I thought Aza and Davis were really sweet, and I really liked the way he did handle her mental illness. I think he sort of did everything right for the most part. He let her sort of have her own space, do what she needed to do, and he was always supportive and helpful in the ways that he could be. I like to think that despite the ending and that they are separated for the rest of high school and probably college. I like to think that they find their way back to each other somehow, because I really think they are two personalities that just like work really well together. This isn't an exact quote, but she says something like, it's a miraculous thing to find someone who sees the world the same way that you do. And I think that's what makes them work so well, because they see the world in a similar way. She's so different in so many ways. I don't even know how to like articulate it into words. But like stuff that stood out to me is how she's so like honest and blunt especially with her relationship with Davis. And he's the same way. He was like, when he gave her the money, he was like, I'm gonna take this, and if you still call me or text me, then I'll know. I just really liked how straightforward they were. One of the saddest parts for me, other than the hospital scene, was how her and Daisy had a fight. But Daisy tells Aza that she's like, I think like mustard. I think that's what she compared it to. A little bit of you is okay, but too much is just too much. I completely understand where Daisy is coming from with that, but also it wasn't a cruel thing to say, but it also wasn't a nice thing to say. But it's just so hard to read, and especially from Aza's perspective, because she already thinks that about herself, but to hear it spoken out loud from her best friend. But on the other hand, I also see Daisy's side, because she was right. She says, you know, you never ask anything about me. What are my parents' names? What do they do for a living? What's my sister's name? Like, Aza is so wrapped up in herself that she does not spend a lot of time trying to figure out what everyone else is doing or what they're about or whatever, which is understandable for Aza because she does have a lot going on in her head. But I see both sides. I see why Daisy was upset. And speaking of Daisy, this wasn't exactly like a main part of the story, but I just really enjoyed the fact that she was like a huge Star Wars nerd. I thought it was really funny. The fact that she wrote Rey and Chewbacca fanfiction was hilarious to me. And then obviously it comes into play later, the character that is Aza in her fanfiction. That was, I don't know how I felt about that. That Aza accepted it. I liked that, and she got to know the character and she liked that. I understood why Aza was so hurt, because it wasn't like a good character for her to be, you know, like represented with. I think it was just another thing that helped Daisy and Aza build their relationship and sort of get past another thing, so their like friendship was stronger. Now, apart from all the relationship and like internal stuff with Aza plot lines, there was like the mystery, which is where the money came from. It was that Davis's dad had gotten a lot of trouble and then he like ran off. 100% thought like it would never be resolved. Don't really care where his dad went. I thought it would just be that Davis and his brother have to move on. But actually they found his body in the river mouth. I didn't actually even realize that that the father was dead until they said, like you saw on the news, that Aza saw it on the news that the body was found. Like, I don't know why, but I just didn't catch it when they were sitting there and they sort of realized. I caught the realization that it was the jogger's mouth, and they're like, oh, this is what was on the notes on his phone, but I didn't catch that they realized that there was a dead body. I don't know how I didn't catch that, or if it was like really obvious and I just completely missed it, but I didn't realize that the dad was dead until later. Another thing that I really loved was the Davis's like Tumblr posts or blog posts, and his like other stuff online and his poetry and whatnot, and the stuff that she would read online. I just thought, one, I really liked his writing. I thought it was really good. His poems were really good, and I liked that it was sort of a bridge for Aza to connect herself to him. She could learn a lot more about him. The last 2 points sort of go together because they're just sort of about how John Green writes his books. In all the books that I've read by him, which is just The Fault in Our Stars and Paper Towns, I haven't read the other ones yet, but in all of them you can just like really feel John Green in them, if that makes any sense. He writes with a lot of heart, and you can really feel that in the life of his characters, because his characters really just come to life. And it's just like a lot of heart and charm, and like his books are just alive. I don't know how else to say it. Something I noticed with his other books and with this one is the way he ends them is not a very common way to end a book. There's no really... Fault in Our Stars is a little different, but with this one and with Paper Towns, there's no really ending, because there's no ending to life. These characters are still alive. They still have their entire lives ahead of them. That's why I liked Paper Towns so much, and that's why I liked Paper Towns a little bit more than The Fault in Our Stars, because Paper Towns was left in such like an open, hopeful ending. And this book was the same way, and I think that's why I liked this one just a little bit more than Paper Towns, but they're pretty close. Like, there's a flash forward in this one to Aza as an adult, and she's talking about getting married and having kids, and she went to school and has a career and all this stuff, and it was just so full of hope. I really, really liked it. I didn't cry in this book at all, which is odd. I feel like I could have, but for some reason I was just so focused on how happy it was, and then you can, like, I could have cried like happy tears, but I was just so, I don't know, I just didn't cry. Like, and lastly, I just want to leave you with a quote. It's the last line of the book, and it says, "No, but no one ever says goodbye unless they want to see you again." I love that line, and I love that it was like sort of a throwback to towards the beginning of the book. Overall, I think I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 turtles. Get it? I think this is my new favorite John Green book. So thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Comment below, blah, blah, blah. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.